September 11th, 2014 meeting of the Forsyth County Board of Education to order. If we could all rise, Kristin is going to do the welcome invocation and pledge.
I'd like to start with a moment of silence in memory of these souls that were lost tragically 13 years ago today. Dear Heavenly Father, we are grateful and blessed for this great county you have created for us. Another school year has begun, and we celebrate the enthusiasm and excitement our children bring to school each morning. Father, though we ask that you continue to keep our students and staff safe throughout the school day, we ask that you lift up the hearts of those families who have recently suffered unimaginable losses. Father, on the solemn anniversary of 9/11, we ask that you take extra care watching over our public safety personnel, both here and abroad, and return them home safely and sound to their loved ones. Lord, may we serve you with honor and glory in all that we do. Amen. Salute. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have before us an agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Tom and a second by Ann. All in favor? Unanimous. And next we have presentation and discussion items. And the first is school nutrition update and policy revision with Valerie Bowers. How are you today? I'm good. Okay.
Okay, well, thank you for giving me this time. I'd like to take just a few minutes to talk to you a little bit about where we currently are in the school nutrition program, to give you a summary of what some of the recent changes have done to our program, and also to talk a little bit about our future plans. And then I also want to talk a little bit about the revisions that we need to make to the wellness plan. Okay, so currently, our lunch participation is at 42% and breakfast is at 13%. We typically see an increase start just about now and go through the month of October, so we expect those numbers to rise. We're currently at 18.9% for free and reduced, and you can see how the levels break out there. And we have a net cash resource of $5.6 million, which is a month operating balance of close to 4 months. So we're in good financial situation here.
Valerie, is that mandated by the state, or is that just something we do in-house?
The state requires us to maintain no more than actually 3 months operating balance.
Okay.
That keeps us within a non-profit status.
Profit, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. So back in 2010, in December 13th to be exact, the President signed into law the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act of 2010. And that reauthorizes several child nutrition programs until September 30th of 2015. The legislation came with recommendations from the Institute of Medicine based on a report that they had done entitled School Meals, Building Blocks for Healthy Children. And it directs the Secretary of Agriculture to make updates to the meal pattern based on the report as well as current scientific data. So these are some of the changes that happened to the program, first starting off with the meal pattern. And we actually were in pretty good shape here in Forsyth because we had made a lot of these changes already. So the ones I'm going to touch on are really the ones that had an impact on our program. But we had already been serving low-fat milk. Our products had no trans fats in them. We were lowering the saturated fat levels, offering a wide variety of fruits and vegetables already, and our grains were already half meeting the requirement for the whole grain-rich products. So the things that came along were the requirement that all of our products that we served had to be whole grain, not just half of the product. So for instance, that included things like the breading on chicken nuggets and different things like that. Lower sodium levels are in place. Calories, we used to analyze our meals based on a weekly basis, which is, beneficial because you could have something that's a little bit higher in calories one day, but it would average out over the week. But now the calorie limits are on a daily basis. And we also students must take either fruit or a vegetable at lunchtime. So it's no longer an option, they have to take it. And then there's also the daily minimum requirement for meats and grains, and also a weekly range for the meats and grains. The financial impact to the program has been both positive and negative. But one of the things that's very positive is that schools meeting the new nutrient standards were able to receive an additional 6 cents per meal. And we received that certification in November of 2012, and it gave us an increase of about $121,000 for the 13 school year and about $193,000 for SY14. One of the other requirements is that we must gradually increase the paid lunch price so that the revenue generated from the paid lunch is equal to the amount reimbursed by the federal government at the free rate. The issue that this has caused us is we have to raise prices even though financially we don't need to. There's not a financial need to do that. And anytime we do that, participation usually drops 2 to 3%. It'll level out, but then again, you're having to build back up to get to that level.
Well, on this change, excuse me if I interrupt you, I'll forget if I have to wait then. When you have to do all of these changes to the whole week, did that cause you to have to pay more for food and everything because everything has to be, well, now they're going to organic and all this farm to school, but having to get everything whole wheat and having to ask for things that aren't even made, like the breading for the chicken nuggets and stuff?
We haven't seen that big of an increase in our food cost. We've been real diligent, though, to make sure that we did a good job with the bid process.
Okay.
And so I think we've done pretty well there.
Okay.
How did it affect participation? Has it gone up percentage-wise? Has it gone up or down after these changes?
It's gone down. I was going to show you something. I'll go ahead and show that now. This is just kind of a comparison, and I chose 2011 because that was like the first year that too much wasn't going on just yet. And then the increase for the prices started from 2011 to the 2012 school year, and then it was required again in the 2013 school year. So you can see there our participation, you can see how our free and reduced numbers have changed. All of these type of things have obviously impacted the participation.
Plus, considering our population has gone up, those numbers going down say even more.
Mm-hmm.
That's what
I'd
I
rather
thought.
have the kids eat food they want to eat
Mm-hmm.
than not eat at all.
And you can see there the different expenses and the revenues that we have brought in and had to pay over the course of the last couple years.
Mm-hmm.
So you skip the $6 million and do it yourself.
Our increase that you see there in labor has a whole lot more to do with insurance costs and things like that than it does actually anything else. Okay. So, let me get back to this.
Sorry to get you off track.
Oh, that's okay. All right. So that kind of gives you a little bit of a view there of the impact financially and participation-wise. Another push of this new law is also that we're trying to identify and then service students that don't have access to meals over the summer. And in Forsyth County, we do have pockets that require this service, and USDA has identified where some of those areas are, so there's a big push to try to do summer feeding. This past year, we helped the Georgia Mountain Food Bank with their summer feeding program, and the transportation department was very nice to help us with a bus, which kind of served as a location for the students to eat. But we're going to have to now take a look and see exactly what the school nutrition program is going to be responsible for, which will probably start June of 15.
Do we know how many students that's going to affect?
At this time, we don't, because I haven't gotten in all the numbers of the areas.
Is it a daily thing, or how often, or?
It just depends. There's two different types of programs that you can take part in, so it depends on which one we choose to. And of course, when we run the numbers, we'll make sure we run the ones that can reach the most kids without incurring too much cost for the program. Some of these pockets overlap in different counties too, so I have to pull out the numbers from where the pocket might overlap into Hall County or Cherokee County and make sure.
And is this funded within our school system, or is it federally funded?
There are grants that you can apply for. However, we don't qualify for those grants.
That's right. I remember reading that. Yeah.
And then there are a couple of things that have impacted the program just on a management level. Our administrative reviews have changed from a 5-year cycle to a 3-year cycle. We had a review in 2012, so we'll have one again in the beginning of the spring here. And then, of course, we have to comply with the Smart Snack Rule. Georgia Department of Education did just approve the 30-day, 3-day rule. We have not gotten all of the guidance on procedures, but we should within the next couple of weeks so that we can put together some procedures for our county in particular. I don't know that it's going to make a great deal of difference to school nutrition, but of course it will impact the schools and their fundraising efforts. So I wanted to show you some of the things that we're doing, because I do believe that even though these changes have been very challenging, they are really what's best for the kids in the long run. And so we are trying to work with what we're currently under and make some positive changes. And so here's some of the things that we're doing. Farm to School and school gardens. We started last year with Feed My School at Sharon Elementary. And I have in my notes to tell you that we are in the running for the Golden Radish Award, but I just found out today that we actually won it at the bronze level. So I was excited about that. We also have received a Georgia Best Practices Award for what went on at Sharon, as well as a USDA Southeast Regional Award. Because of the efforts that were going on in Sharon, we are kind of expanding to Cumming Elementary, where they have a fabulous garden already in place. And what we're doing now is taking some of the products that are in that garden and providing them at school lunch in different recipes and doing taste tests and samples and things like that, letting the kids know that this is growing in their backyard. Chastity, again, we're working with community partners there to get some school gardens going. Just got a phone call from Coal Mountain wanting to know if we could do a fall harvest soup day. So we're going to incorporate what they're doing in their school garden as well. And then at North Forsyth High School, we're doing some composting and things like that. We have menu development that we've started with our manager committees. We have smoothies. These are some pilots that are in place at Shiloh Point that really were very popular, so we're expanding those to some of our other schools. We have a mobile breakfast cart that we're starting at Lambert, trying to reach kids as they come off the bus for breakfast. Salad bars at Riverwatch. We're working with some iPads to help speed up the lines and get kids through a little quicker. And we're working with scanning cards at Sawney Elementary to help those little ones come through quicker too. We've had a discussion at North Forsyth High with their administrative team there about possible collaboration efforts with our program and their student programs, such as culinary through their food and sciences class, do some planning with their agriculture classes. We are hoping that their marketing class will take us on as a client and market our program to the students there at North Forsyth.
Good.
And of course, we're working with green teams across the county as well. We're working with the renovations of the new buildings and trying to create a new concept for the cafeteria, see if that works for some of the schools. And in order to help our managers deal with a lot of the changes that are going on, we are also starting a manager leadership series and have implemented manager committee teams to help work out some of the issues. So what I see coming up for this next year is I believe that our lunch participation is going to stabilize. I'm afraid that breakfast might decline a little bit in participation. One of our favorite items, which is a chocolate muffin top,
Smells so good.
is no longer available. It doesn't meet the grain requirement. So believe it or not, I've had principals calling me about
I've
chocolate
seen the happiest
muffins.
faces at Midway Elementary when the chocolate muffins are there that day.
Is there any other flavor besides chocolate that would meet? Well, I mean, I would want chocolate, but I meant that would meet the
It's the
requirements.
cream.
We do have a blueberry that meets, and we did bid a chocolate chip, but we wanted a chocolate chip, and we got just a plain chocolate chip, and that didn't work real well. So we're on the hunt for the chocolate chip.
With the whole grains.
And then we could possibly see a small decrease in revenue because of the smart snack regulations. Again, I think that's probably going to hit fundraising projects more so than it might us. And then in 2016, we are going to be required to raise our prices again. We're not at a point where we have to, but we will be required to. So anytime we do that, we'll see a little bit of a decrease.
Did you tell you how much? I'm sorry. How much you have to increase it? I mean, a percentage?
Well, currently, the free reimbursable rate is $2.96, and our lunch price average across the county is $2.25. And so the goal is to try to get as high with the paid lunch price as the reimbursement. But it's a moving target because we keep increasing reimbursement. So we actually have to fill out a worksheet, and it kind of dictates how much we have to increase by or not.
Makes you wonder who's in charge.
Formula.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah.
So you're still funded, you basically are zero budget. The money that comes in completely pays for everything, and there's no balance, there's no out.
But it's bizarre to me that they
With
make you charge more.
So
Right, even though you don't.
And
need
some of
revenue.
these things, for instance, I don't think too many people have an issue with the meal pattern changes. I do think a lot of the management issues and a lot of the financial part of it is really difficult to understand because, like you said, if we raise our prices and we make more money, then we, at the end of the following year, will get a letter that says you have excess funds and you need to figure out how to spend these funds. So it kind
and
of,
chocolate.
yeah. So those are the things we try to balance and make work out. So that's where.
That's like an oxymoron, isn't it?
Mhm.
And the summer program might be a good
I was gonna say,
intern
the summer
place for,
program might-
the culinary students, might be an intern opportunity.
Yes, we're
If you
really
have to go
hoping
there.
that some of
Spend
our
money, too.
efforts with the high school students is going to pay
Pan
off,
out.
yes.
I think
Is
that'd
that
be
like
good.
one meal a day that you take, or, I mean, I didn't even know there was such a thing as summer feeding.
Yes, well, actually, for summer feeding, depending on which program you take part in, you can feed as many as 3 meals a day. It can be a meal and a snack, depending on the program. So I would look to feed 1 meal and possibly a snack, depending on the need. I'm not sure we need to get into the 3 meals just yet.
No.
It's a big
Depends on
idea.
travel time for, I guess, you were saying they use the bus and the bus becomes the location and they have to come to it?
Right, the students actually came to the bus, and the reason we have the bus available is because, according to the regulations, there has to be a site where students can sit and eat. So the kids get on the bus, they sit and eat. They're out of the weather, too, that type of thing during the summer. And so it allows them a safe place to have their meal. Depending on the need and the area, we could go to a school, we could go to a church. There's different things that we can do. It's just a matter of finding out the areas and the number of kids that we're talking about.
Interesting.
And the labor would, probably come from most of our staff that might look for summer employment. Do you have any other questions about that?
There was one thing in there about the training that was going to be $40,000.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I forgot to mention that. We are going to also be required to do additional training for all of our employees. And it appears as though, just taking a quick look, that they're going to require 8 hours for all of our staff employees. So doing a rough estimate, it came to about additional $40,000 a year.
Is that per year that they'll have to do this training over and over and over and over again, even though some of these people have been doing it for years?
Right. So,
Is that not crazy?
well, we'll definitely try to find, topics that are of current and interest and help them.
See, we're not the only ones that are having that trouble.
There you go.
Wow.
Spend your time on it.
The other thing that is required through the new act is that we update our wellness policy. And actually, the one we had in place was in really good shape. It just required a few additions that were not currently there. So those are highlighted in yellow, and the one deletion that I made is actually a change, and I thought it might make it easier for policies in the future. All of our analysis now and all of our meal requirements are based on the federal meal pattern and the nutrition standards, so I changed that instead of having it read U.S. Dietary Guidelines for Americans. And then the things that I added were the first bullet there, just added Wellness Committee to make that a little easier to read and follow. The second bullet, we have to incorporate a process of analyzing our policy and our procedures on a periodic basis. They have not indicated exactly what that period is, whether it's a year or every 2 years, but we do have to have an assessment of it. So that's the second bullet there. The third bullet is we have to make all that information available to the public. So we added that. And then the final bullet there simply talks about complying with the smart snacks. That's what that reference is there, that our schools will do that.
All right, Valerie, the $64 million question. If we were able to opt out of the federal regulation so that we could do what is right by the children, still doing the healthy meals, all that stuff, but not unrealistic like this is, could we do, I mean, how much money would that mean if we had to absorb it? Do you remember?
$6 million here on the revenue.
Right.
Yeah, currently we get about $6.23 million from the federal government, which is reimbursement and commodities. What we don't really see right now in that amount is what we get in support, technical support, training materials, training classes, workshops, things like that that we can attend. To consider leaving the program, also we need to think about the fact that we have close to is it 9,000, a little over 8,000 free and reduced students. So we would need to think about what we would want to do there. Obviously, that's pockets in different schools, but it is in every school.
Could it not be possible if we were selling meals that were more appealing to teenagers, boys in high school, that our revenues and sales could go up enough to help offset the costs for the free and reduced?
You know, I did a little bit of research and I pulled up some information based on other schools that have already opted out of the program. And unfortunately, at this point in time, there's not a whole lot of information out there because most of them dropped out last year. So we don't have that information right now. But what they are saying is that the average cost of a meal to a student is somewhere between $5.50 and $6. So right now, students are paying $2.35 for that meal. So, you know, you're obviously in our community have places where $6 is not going to be an issue. But, you know, that's definitely something to think about.
So they just pass the cost on to the students versus absorbing it in the whole tax?
Sure.
Wow.
Sure, because there is no longer a place to get that kind of reimbursement or funds
So
back.
when do you think we can look at, it'll be another year, do we see some data from other systems that have done it, or when do you think we'll have something tangible to compare?
I would expect, because there still are some schools that are considering that, that probably within the next couple of months, by the middle of the year, I would think people would start advertising and publishing that information.
It almost seems like the best thing to do is to try to lobby to have Congress change this to where it's more reasonable.
And there are lots of efforts right now being done to try to change some of these things. You know, especially things like raising prices when there might not be a need to do that.
Or doing a calorie count on per day rather than the week, so to give you more flexibility, or requiring everything be whole grain versus mixing it some.
And they have given us a few waivers, just, you know, to make sure that you know this. So, for instance, one of the things we could do is offer a chicken nugget that didn't have 100% whole grain on the breading, but you still have to incorporate those calories into your daily calorie count. So even though they kind of let you make a few changes here, it's still the overall effect of the meal on the calorie count. So it's still a little bit of a challenge, but it's definitely something to look at.
How many
Yeah.
calories are in an average, say, elementary child's lunch?
Right now, the average is 550 to 650 calories, and it goes up to the middle school and the high school. The high school, I think, at the top level is about 900, 850. And this is all based on scientific data, so it's supposed to be kind of what we should be eating, and sometimes it's difficult because I don't think too many of us are there, and so it does seem like quite a change, but.
You're right.
For the fundraisers, that 30 exempt rule, is that per school, 30? They can have
It
30
is.
per school. So
It's-
it doesn't matter if you have like a high school with 2,500 kids or you have an elementary with 600, it's 30 per school.
30 per school.
Again,
And they can,
that
I was
doesn't
under
make
the
sense.
impression that they could only run 3 consecutive days.
That's what it says.
But actually, it can be 3 separate days. So for instance, if the drama club wanted to sell donuts, they could do it October 1st, November 1st, December 1st.
Okay.
So at first I
It's a
thought it was
little bit
consecutive, but 3 days. So I understand Mr. Perkel is responsible for approving those, so we'll have to figure out a way to help him keep
Well, because
track
the
of all of
principal will
that.
have to be involved and decide, I mean, if they've got more than 30 organizations, who gets to have the fundraiser and
Right,
who
they'll
does
have to-
not? That's,
Does he save back a few in case somebody in April wants something and
Yeah.
not give them all away in September?
right, that's going to be hard at the high school level.
That's important for
me.
our principals we spend time on, as counting donut sales. Yeah.
I'm just glad I don't work for that beverage company anymore that might be impacted. That might
saw
put me in a
that.
weird place right now. But they don't buy us signs anymore on our football fields, so we're
Right.
good.
They were talking about, when I went to the Forsyth Central's LSC, about they always have sold the Chick-fil-A biscuits on Friday mornings, every Friday morning.
Yes.
And Mitch
I've
didn't know that.
Received a lot of calls from parents, from Chick-fil-A people themselves, and yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, so that's
We're-
going to be part of the,
yeah, they can't do that.
They can't do that. And
Chick-fil-A
elementary school has
biscuits.
been doing it too.
Right.
for-
They don't meet the nutrient
Anything that
standard, so
doesn't
it would be an
have
exempt
Chick-fil-A
fundraiser. So it'd have to count as one of
And
those.
the carpool lines and stuff, yeah.
wow.
I think give time for the public to find out and understand it. I mean, we saw the impact of us or them thinking that we were cutting off cupcakes from the classroom. This is 10 times bigger than that. And we
You're
had
right.
the local news up here for that, so just give them time.
That's
Until
right.
they really find out the impact. Thank you, you're doing a
Yeah,
great
it's
job.
great. Thank you.
Barry.
Thank you. Okay. That's a lot to think about. Next, we have Tom Winning with the instruction update. How are you today?
Great. Good afternoon.
Wow.
This is our shovel man.
I've been called that before.
Busy.
Are you shoveling it yet?
So as an update to the projects since our last meeting, starting with the high schools, for North Forsyth High, the concessions restroom stadium project, we've got the certificate of occupancy and punch list is complete, so that's our first complete project. Moving to the major projects of the North, Central, and South additions and renovations. At the last meeting, you approved the design contracts. Since then, we began kickoff meetings for each of those 3 schools with the design team, the school administrators, and central office departments in a real collaborative effort, so everyone's expectations can be input and prioritize those and try to get those all within the budget and move forward, but certainly everyone is being listened to in the process. So simultaneous with the design process that's occurring on all those projects, we have begun the initial stages of the procurement process for the building side. You'll see the notation CM and GC. CM stands for the Construction Manager at Risk, which is a little bit of a more complicated delivery process that we're using for the phased additions and renovations as they're a more complicated project. Because we have the prototypes for the new schools, we feel comfortable with the general contracting delivery method that we've always used. So that procurement process for pre-qualifications is currently occurring. We're going through the 30-day advertisement process, and all of those initial pre-qualification statements from the building community marketplace will be received September 25th, and that gets us in a good timeline as we'll then procure each of the building projects, starting with Brandywine, and then stagger them out amongst the pool of builders that are pre-qualified within our program. The other change on the high schools is now Lambert is assigned from a design perspective to BRPH, and because we had a little float with Lambert as opposed to the other projects that were prioritized, we've got BRPH now scheduled and assigned to that. The other aspect of Lambert is we are trying to get that parking lot done for the football game next Friday night of the week, so we're getting there. For the middle schools, the vestibules, security upgrades are complete with the exception of the canopies. We're on schedule, as we always said, to have that done by the end of September, and you'll be seeing that progress in the next couple weeks. Middle school 10, the design is right behind Brandywine Elementary School, so you'll see the connotation of bidding in November versus the entry below Brandywine Elementary School. We are set now with a bid date of November 7th. And you kind of get there by going through the pre-qualification process, having the 2-week time period to respond, then you've got your pre-qualified bidders, then you've got your 30 days to respond to it, and all of that gets us to November 7th. And if you play the chess game out, that works fine for the completion of summer of 17.
Okay.
Any questions?
There's a lot going on. Did the design people for Central, I know they were trying to get the...
16, I say
Depends on what
16,
it
not
is.
17. I said 17.
Wait a second. I'm like, wait a minute, that's not...
17 for middle school.
Yeah, the high
Okay.
school.
I
Yeah.
had us a little nervous.
I know, Kristin, I'm sorry. They were talking about when they made the presentation, the LSC trying to get the offices included in the cost as well. It's not just the connection piece between the two campuses, but adding an office on that side. It wasn't really in the plans, but he just looked at me and said, we're trying to figure out a way to go ahead and do that too. I don't know if they had or not.
At this preliminary stage, I think it's ambitious. I don't want to create an expectation for that.
All right.
We've got a long way to go.
Good. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, next we have the training and touring other systems. And first, as far as the training, when does our training run, like the 6 hours or that you have to have? What is the year like? Do you know?
I think it's our fiscal year, isn't it? July 1, right. July 1 to June 30th.
So what we were thinking is maybe have a retreat in October and do some whole board training and do some stuff with Jeff since he's new. And then that could count toward this year's training.
That works for me.
What I need to know is there any time in October, he's going to talk to, what was her name?
Zinda Bowie at GSBA.
About doing the whole board training thing for us?
Instead of January?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, we'll probably maybe have a retreat then too, but just
Right.
get part of it out of the
Yeah, that'd be
way.
a trip.
That'd be nice, yeah.
And is there any time in October that you know of now that you're going to be out of town or doesn't work for you or anything like that?
I'm definitely gone from October 9th to the 12th.
Okay.
Going to Green Bay.
And
For
just
wedding.
Halloween weekend, just because it's...
Halloween.
Because you have a
Halloween.
trick or treat.
Halloween,
I
yeah.
have a daughter whose birthday is then, so...
Okay. Is there any other dates that you know of? Anybody
What
knows
about the
of?
23rd or 24th that week or something towards the end of the week?
That's kind of what I was
Yeah, I get
thinking.
that. Thursday night, Friday really has worked well for us.
So that's good for you. I didn't know with your thing
Well,
Thursday.
yeah, I'd have to,
Like
you know-
Thursday afternoon, stay Thursday night and come back Friday. That's good. Does that
Just have to.
work pretty good for everybody?
Mhm.
Okay, we'll
Yeah.
talk to GSBA and shoot for that. And then the other thing is we talked about touring other systems, something that we all feel like we need to do. And as we were talking about it, I talked to Keith about researching for us. that he needs us to give him a few more guidelines as to what we are looking for. So are we looking for systems like with different technology from us? Are we looking for systems that have the same diversity issues? Are we looking for systems that are higher achievers? Are we looking for systems that have the same growth issues? I mean, he needs,
I
you
would
know
think
what I'm saying?
high achieving would be, I think, pretty high on the list, because we're always saying we score well in Georgia, but we want to score better nationally. So I would think high achieving, to me, would be one of the higher priorities, and then a lot of the other stuff will go along with it. If it's high achieving, it probably will have the growth. But I
Are
would
you
think
getting this down, or you want me to write it down? You got it,
We're
okay.
talking about it for the board, but I would think if we're going to go to something that's high achieving academically, then we would want to talk to Cindy and Fonda and see I would think they would want to come and get, we could go and listen, but honestly, I think they're going to get as much out of it or more. So I would want to have their input on what they would want to be looking for, and they may already have ideas of where would be good to go. Ask them.
Years ago, when we went to Chicago, we stayed an extra day and went to a couple of schools, and it was more program-based rather than high-achieving. And one of the high schools we went to was one that they had a mentor program then that was very successful, done by students during the daytime. So that was something that we wanted to look at, how that was structured. So to me, we are high-achieving, but even our earlier discussion about doing different schools, different academies, I think that we would probably want to look at maybe not just high achieving, but school systems that had different structures or different programs that they've maybe captured in one school. There's a school written up in a newsletter I saw today that was an elementary school that has completely been turned over to its own government structure, and the kids are learning, they have businesses that they're running, they have their own government structure like they're a little town. It was a very poor area. I think it's up in Virginia. But that's just fascinating to me that somebody would do that. It's just getting started, so you can't judge. But there've got to be programs in other areas in Colorado and Texas and Virginia and all, and Massachusetts that would have maybe different programs, like you're talking about, setting up as different academies or something.
That are not necessarily having a whole sports.
Right.
It's not just the cookie cutter
Yeah.
schools. So.
And
A charter type of, magnet schools.
Right. I think that we need to explore that so that we can evaluate whether we need to stay the course and do all of our schools and try to meet all the needs, if there's room and what it takes to do a school like that, if it's a separate entity, how that would fit in so that we've got some kind of comparison versus trying just to figure it out ourselves.
Maybe high-growth areas also, fast-growing, that also are looking at some different options, like we are with the fast growth,
Yeah.
like I say, different
But I would think
out-of-the-box thinking.
something that has.
There's not going to be many of those, though. I mean,
Well, I don't know.
we're the
That's what I'm
fastest
saying.
growing.
Yeah,
If
right.
it had more than, I would prefer a place that had more than one high school, as a system that had more than one high school, so that it's something comparable to us. And diversity, that had different economics and also social, because we're going through a lot of changes, and that would be something that I would like to see as well.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is we're saying everything that I said. So I guess maybe what we need to do is prioritize a
And
little
I'd like
bit,
to get
because
some
I
staff
don't know that he
input,
can
too.
find something that has everything. I mean, I guess he can look, but
We tried, didn't you try Plato, Texas, and never got, they weren't.
it was Texas or it was Meckle, it was Charlotte.
Charlotte
that we never heard
Mecklenburg was
from.
one that we looked at, but,
Raleigh Durham.
5 school systems that we benchmark for Pell.
right.
We have at least, it's been a while since we've spoken with them, but we vetted those that were like us, had growth, had higher achiever than we were, and they had various programs they told us about.
Okay.
So it might be, we start with looking at those and see if any of those would be interesting to you, and then we could go from there.
Oh, great, that's work.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe
Share
if
those with
you could
Keith.
get with Keith and y'all could kind of look
Share
at it and
those.
just kind of give us just a quick summary of this school has this and this has this, and then maybe we can talk about it and see what we think might be beneficial, most beneficial.
And that they happen to drop the nutrition, that would be nice too, it change their,
Yeah.
drop their federal guidelines, a little bit of everything.
So anything else, Keith, that you need to know from us? We're good? I mean, that'll get you started, and, okay. All righty, thanks, Cindy.
Talking about, talking with Cinda, and I know she does a lot of whole board training, But I had to fill out a questionnaire, and I don't know if y'all did that or not, about the
I
training.
have not
Did
done
you do
it
that?
yet, I still got it.
Well, I did, and my biggest thing was that I felt like the ethics that was passed need to be overhauled, because the state, when they approved it, it's very ambiguous. But I got to thinking, I know that we went through the ethics years ago, but it probably would be a good idea just to, for all of us as a board to sit down and go through it again, to get in our heads about where the state is on that, and maybe
That's
use that
what
as our whole.
maybe we'll use that as a focus,
Yeah.
maybe for her part.
Right, yeah.
Okay, all right. Anything else that we can think of? And if you, we'll also have some time too, so if you come up, need anything else that you want to go on that agenda, just, you can let me know. And in the meantime, we'll check and see if we can get her and for those dates, if those dates are pretty good.
Mhm.
Okay? All right, does anybody have any other future agenda items that we need to add? No? All right, do I have a motion to go into executive sessions?
So moved. Second?
A motion by Ann and a second by Nancy, all in favor? For personnel, forgot to say for personnel, executive session for personnel. Okay. Oh, you did, that's right. Yeah, that happens.
So do we take that back?
We have to share when that happens.
On your computer,
What'd you do?
Control 1.
I only did that a couple of times, didn't I?
I think you might have been hitting Control Escape. I did.
Oh, yeah, you have to go back.